Hello, welcome to a brief walkthrough of how to use the PM2.5 Retrieval package. The first step is to navigate to this Google Drive folder, and you can download the full training dataset. It is a very large file, so it might take a bit to download and then also unzip. I'll start by discussing the general setup and configuration steps on a Linux machine with a CPU. So I found an easy way to download TensorFlow, and the other model dependencies are to use a Conda virtual environment. So if you don't already have Anaconda installed on your machine, you're going to want to navigate to this link. And if you scroll down, you can see there are a bunch of different distributions for different operating systems, and you should click on the one that corresponds to your machine architecture. Once you've downloaded the correct distribution, you should navigate to the location where you downloaded it. So mine is right here. And I'm using a CentOS 7 server. So the next step, as you see here, is to just write bash and then copy the path or the location of the installer. So mine is right here. And then it will start prompting you. So you can just hit enter. You can read through the license and then you can type yes. This will now, this tells you the default location where Anaconda 3 will be downloaded. So if that's okay, you can hit enter. And if it's not, you can specify a different location. That's fine for me. And this is going to take a second to load. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording. So once the install has finished, you will get this prompt to initialize Anaconda. So I'm going to say yes. And it will ask if you want to install VS Code. Sure. Okay, great. And so now I can either close my terminal or run this source bash. And so this should initialize Anaconda. So we can verify this. Great, so it seemed to have worked. The next step is to create a Conda virtual environment, which is necessary to install TensorFlow, as well as makes it easier to install the model dependencies. So this is pretty simple. I'm going to call my virtual environment retrieval. And so the command here is conda create and this is just telling me there's a newer version of Conda, which is fine for our purposes. This version should suffice. And in order to activate this, so now we're inside our new environment. And now we can install the model dependencies. So there are 3 model dependencies here. And I'll start by, it's usually best to install them one by one. So I'll start by NumPy. And this can take a while. So if this went on for much longer, you can start these troubleshooting tips, which often expedite the download process, but that was rather quick. Yes, proceed. So once this one is done, you can install the next one, which is pandas. And lastly, you should install scikit-learn. So now that the model dependencies are installed, there are two dependencies for TensorFlow specifically. So these are CUDA toolkit and also CUDA DNN. So I'll install those. And lastly, you should install cuDNN. Last thing before installing TensorFlow is to install pip if you don't already have it on your computer. Now you can install TensorFlow. So using pip, pip install TensorFlow. So now that TensorFlow is done downloading, the next step is to download and unzip the sample training data set, which was linked above. Make sure you have the model script downloaded, as well as this detection model directory, which is used for the log file. And they're all right here in this repository. So retrieval model update, and as well as this detection model. And then this is the training data set. So I'll give you a second to download all of these files. So once you have the files downloaded, I'm using a remote server. So you can see here the retrieval model script, the training data set, and also the detection model, which inside it has a file that will have the output of the model results. And so now all you need to do, verify that you're inside of your virtual environment with all of the necessary packages. You might get a few errors here, but you can ignore them. They're, as this last one says, it's mostly just dealing with GPUs. So it isn't relevant in this context. And the model will obviously take a while to train. I'm going to pause the recording while the model is training. So once the model has finished, you will be able to see the model results. You should go over to your file structure or FileZilla, whatever you're using. And inside of the detection model, the PM retrieval H5 file will have all of these, all of the model results from this model. So you can open this up and take a look at it and whatever else you'd like. And that's all for this tutorial. Again, this is just for CPU support. For GPU support, there are other instructions to install TensorFlow on a Linux, just a bit different, but you can still use a Conda environment to install all of the dependencies and to run your model. Thanks so much.